What's up guys, Akariss here, bringing you another Fire Emblem Heroes video. Today's video features another commentary, as you guys probably tell already, with some minor changes on board, on screen. Hope you guys follow. So this one is an interesting one, probably one of the harder matches I had from last season in Astra, but it was a lot of fun as well. You'll see Sigurd there. Yeah, let's do it. Enjoy.
Let the lesson begin.
Alright guys, so first things first, when I was first going through this Astra season, I think I was having a little bit too much fun. A lot of my team compositions were not necessarily optimized from playing last season, despite it being Cyros' bonus, and a lot of people onboarding onto Legendary Sigurd as a pretty prominent hero on defense and the capabilities he can do. Now, if you're not really sure why someone like Sigurd is so impactful, I did cover legendaries on AR defense in a video about a week ago or two, so go check that out if you want to know why someone like Sigurd is so good on defense. I still remain by the fact that he is locked to win month and win seasons in general, so if you rely on him for success, it might be a lot harder to get a lot of those successes when it's not win season. Nonetheless, I ran into a team here that has Fire Sweep Bow, I believe Gravity, I believe it even has a Restore with Clarine, and Sigurd of course has 4 movement, plus a dual Dorothea. I'm not sure why Mira is the 7th unit, but that's pretty much the only weakness I would give the team. It's not that bad because a lot of the units can follow up from Sigurd engaging on your team. So I'll let this play and I'll pause at different moments just to give you guys my thoughts as to how I approached it. Thankfully, the Sigurd was not running QP, but if you are looking to really play into Sigurd, one thing that I would recommend that I did was I spent 2400 Path 2 codes for nils to get even pulse tie for my Corrin. Now in this video, my Corrin doesn't have that yet, but it is a solid investment for the QP Sigurds that you run into, and those that can engage you turn 1 and you can create some space. Using even pulse tie, you'll basically always hit Sigurd from his QP accelerated special, and if you run a tank like Hardin over here who has special fighter, you won't really allow him to engage on you with that special, enabling the rest of his team. And if Sigurd can't activate his special, he's a much less threat. He's much less of a threat. He is a great frontliner and he's very resilient to clean up if you leave him alive, which is why I went for like my Hardin team here as opposed to let's say my Linja team. I believe I also had a Gale Force team as of this time that featured Pirate to Barn and Reveal, but this team is pretty difficult to Gale Force. Again, the reason for that is I don't have Plumeria, so I have one less action in that regard, and the frontline traps there make it pretty difficult to engage without basically using smites to try to get on there, and you don't really know whether that lightning trap there is real or not, so you can't really depend on, let's say, Wings of Mercy follow-ups, because if the one on the right side there where Clarine is ends up being the real one, then you may not have Wings of Mercy follow-ups. So this match was interesting because I said to myself, okay, since Mira is 7th unit, she will be deactivated at the beginning of the turn, and I can Bridal from Dorothea, which means I can set up Hardin here to just bait out Sigurd without any issues. One thing I did check for is to make sure that Hardin actually gets the kill. He actually gets the kill through damage reduction here, which is insane, but nonetheless he does it. And the reason I had to check to make sure the kill was there because I believe there was a Wings of Mercy on dual Dorothea, and I didn't want her coming in to like snipe my Regan or Altina perhaps. Now this is where things get a bit interesting because normally, let's say you were running like Hector here, you would probably be in a bit of trouble because Clarine could be threatening your mythics. So even if I was to use Regan to go kill Wrath, which is definitely in the works here, I would be using Hector in a bit of an issue because I would be kind of forced to, let's say, unit block Clarine and hope for the best. But the problem with that strategy, of course, is that dual Dorothea could follow up, maybe dance Clarine and potentially snipe one of my units. Now, Hector is interesting here because he doesn't really have a player phase, but in contrast, Hardin does. And Hardin's condition is as long as your opponent is 100% HP, then you are basically getting forward all stats plus that on-hit heal. So because I had a plus speed Hardin, I have a plus speed Hardin, and he has, I believe, 37 speed with his speed. I don't know if it's a super rune. He gets 37 attack, 15 speed, 30 defense, 13 res because of Unity, and that's just insane. The dude is up to like 50 something speed here. I don't even have Plumeria. So Gaia, like, it's kind of shocking how well Hardin actually does in this game. It's probably one of the few games where I'm really happy that he's my carry, I guess. But this game ended up being crazy because of how things worked out. Like, it seemed like he shouldn't have been able to pull through here. But what I did was I made sure I exposed the weakness of the team there, baiting out Sigurd, making sure his special wasn't ready. If you're running even Pulse Tie, even QP, Sigurd wouldn't really be a problem because you could just wait on turn 2 to engage once. Yeah, you could wait until turn 2 to engage and take off that special him, therefore taking off the threat of the whole Fire Sweep Bow Poison Strike that Wrath is threatening the team with. All the other strategies I had, like Ninja for example, wouldn't have really worked because of Crusader's Ward and Hallow Turfing reducing damage significantly, and you'd pretty much be leaving Sigurd up to cause a storm, I suppose. So the rest of the match at this point becomes fairly easy, but it's really important to identify key positioning from turn 1 into turn 2, which is making sure that Regan is in a place to take out Wrath on turn 2, which was key to setting this up. Like, I wouldn't want Regan over here in the right spot, for example, and obviously not here because Clarion would threaten that. I'd want Regan over here to make sure that she could hit any of the places that Wrath would end up, because he wouldn't end up over here. He'd be chasing probably Naga or Bridal Fjorm, depending on who he has a better damage ratio against. Thankfully, multiple smites here on the mythics, like Naga and Altina, do contribute very well. Naga being able to provide Hardin with attack and res, and I believe that Corrin had speed defense links, so that gives the full buffs across the board. And Regan's with Kanto, as always, is key here, but reposition on her tends to be very strong because you can get her to reposition something, get into a safe position, and then get one of your other units to smite to follow up onto that. Of course, Bridal Fjorm, as I've mentioned, is like a very strong one-off that you should always consider having if you have her, and especially in Astra season. In light season, it's nice to have someone like Bridal Fjorm if you don't have Mila, but if you have Mila, it becomes a bit unnecessary to have 2 units who can do isolation. It's probably still okay for, like, let's say hit and run strat to have like Bridal Fjorm and Mila, but it gets a bit harder to make that work because of, you know, again, long danger areas or the lack of a second dancer. Hardin, after using him for a full week, I don't want to say he's like better than Hector, because I don't believe that's still the case, because Malted is just very strong. One reason that someone like Hardin works for me is because I haven't noticed that like armor slaying has kind of fallen off. Like, you don't see armor slaying anymore because it's just less useful. A lot of the prominent armor tanks just don't even care about effective damage. Someone like let's say Fallen Edelgard doesn't really care about a single hit of effective damage, which usually ends up hitting her damage reduction anyways, and then she survives. And the other case is something like Vector just isn't an armor. Fallen Edelgard, again, he really needs like a red armor effective unit to really hit her hard, and there isn't really like a meta red armor right now. Like, the meta reds are essentially like Winter Altina, I guess, and she's not armor, so you really just don't see a lot of that armor slaying that you might have maybe years ago, or even a year ago, when people might have been using something like Surtur as a carry, for all I know. So Hardin actually ends up being fairly well and not really an issue. The mobility is the key problem to using tanks like this, and always limits the sort of plays you can do, which really makes things more difficult than they should be. The rest of this match is basically me just getting the pots, which of course with Duma left up as the last unit is not really a problem. But ultimately, I would say that when you run your different team comps, you should always consider different strategies. So nowadays, like a Gale Force strategy is good, a tanking strat is good, and of course I made videos covering all this within even the past month or so. Tanking strategy, Gale Force strategy, hit and run is pretty good if you have like isolation like Bridal Fjorm, or anyone who can really just get in and out, like, are all super good options. Finally, make variations of those strategies. So try to like create, let's say, Hardin with a support like Corin, or maybe use him with like Bridal Fjorm and a support, or Legendary Elwood and a support, or maybe even a Dancer and a support. So you want to create those variations, maybe different Gale Force strategies where one uses like Bridal Fjorm, one doesn't. Maybe you want to use Valoria in one strategy, maybe you don't, or maybe use Layla. So for example, mix and match those one-offs and create those variations and strategies that would lead to success. Okay guys, that basically covers this particular ARO commentary. I hope you enjoyed it as always. There are more to come, definitely, as I find these very unique matches where things just line up right, or I can provide you guys with feedback that will improve your own game by learning maybe through my own mistakes. As always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, let me know what you think in the comments below. Maybe even seek out your own questions or advice about certain strategies or units who you might be unsure of, and I can definitely read and check back with you on that. If you feel like supporting the channel and you want to keep seeing this content coming, consider the Patreon in the description. Also a join button, or visit me on Twitch. Thank you, folks. Love you all. See you in the next one. Peace.
It's over.